Phoenix, Arizona, the fifth largest populated city in the United States, and frankly, the only city with the largest population with the capital, and the only city within a state that is the only state of actually what we call that doesn't have daylight savings, and that actually has the largest Navajo population. I just thought it would be fun to actually talk about my birth city since I am a Phoenix myself because I'm born and raised here. And after having a talk from the police not too long ago last night of a 15-year-old 4'10" teenage girl that actually went missing, which really made me feel awful of hearing that this actually happens throughout where I live. I thought it would be kind of crucial to actually talk about like five, I'm gonna say this, cruel cons when it comes to living here. So what you actually see here is teen runaways, homelessness, poor mental health care, reckless drivers, and lack of schooling education. These are one of the major issues when it comes to living here that a lot of people don't know about my state that I actually felt sharing, and I almost burst, by the way. And I probably will be kind of too, I'm gonna say, this, stressed out to look up the Fox 10 News to actually hear about that girl missing, because I actually feel awful that the police told me her name. I don't know if it was Priscilla, because I kind of blanked out, so I don't remember her name, but I just remember that they told me that she's Hispanic, and she is a short 15-year-old girl that actually went missing, and it was around my neighborhood, at least a little like down the street from where I live. So the first thing I want to talk about is teen runaways that actually has this happen. The problem is that, how am I gonna explain this? It's kind of common for like teens and even adults, right? Even though this has to do with teens, because it's kind of interesting how you can actually run away when you're an adult, which I don't really see that happening unless you basically had to be taken care of if you're not mentally or physically stable. And the thing is that it's really common for teens to actually go missing where I live, especially what actually has happened tonight, because of how they may live in poor households or just having parents that don't really take well care of their kids, along with this, this, how am I gonna explain this? Kidnapping being quite common here. And we also are supposed to be, I think, maybe like the fourth highest missing state capital, so to speak, when it comes to, well, not like the city Phoenix, but throughout the whole state, when it comes to basically people missing, which I'm sure it represents teens, which doesn't make sense to me of why how I'm gonna say this, teen runaways are really common. So I definitely could do more research on that, even though I probably don't want to because it's really saddening to actually talk about this. But as a person that was barely of legal age at 18, right? Because 18 is like adult age, right? Even though in other countries you would be considered as an adult at 16 or something. I don't know. It just depends on where you live. But the thing is that I know by experience when it comes to being a runaway myself, because I got, I'm gonna say this, molested when I ran away from home right when I turned 18, because there was a man in a white cruiser. I don't remember his name. He was black, but he was in his mid-20s, if I remember. I don't remember exactly. But he picked me up at a 7-Eleven store because I went away from home because I actually had some issues at home, right? Hush, hush. Sorry about that. Those are my pups that are barking because they got great hearing. And I either would accept him picking me up, and he took me to his apartment in downtown Phoenix. Like I mentioned before, this happened right when I turned 18, right? Like, barely legal age, right? Like, I would still be considered as underage, right? When this actually happened. I either got the option to go in his car and he gave me McDonald's because I was starving, right? Or I would have freeze to death because I would be too terrified to actually ask for help. And I took the latter by going to his apartment, and I wanted to leave because I felt unsafe, and I told him that I want to go back home, even though I'm running away from home, and I got kicked out, right? Because I lived with my neighbors at the time, and I felt awful to live with them, and basically he wanted me to do some nasty stuff of, how am I gonna say this, opening my anus cheeks as he was watching porn, and he actually gave me oral sex, even when I, couldn't consent. Well, I guess you could say I could consent, but I didn't give him that permission to do that. So it wasn't pretty, and he basically, what I would have. I mean, if I could, because I didn't have a cell phone at the time, because I ran away, right? He would have been charged for statutory rape, so to speak. So it did bug me throughout these years that this incident has happened to me. I just thought it'd be appropriate to actually share that. Now, for the second con when it comes to living in Phoenix is the homelessness. This is really, really something that I have been curious to talk about. Now, when it comes to Phoenix, though, we're not as expensive as, let's just say, Los Angeles or heck, even San Fran, for example. However, though, basically with the rents, depending on the neighborhood that you actually live in, it has been going up lately, along with people just, more likely to actually get kicked out and getting evicted because of the economy that it has been a little bit poor, so to speak. And from my experience, when it comes to, if I actually can name like a few streets, like, well, okay, I'm not really good at naming streets out here because I don't pay attention to streets, even though I do know the destination I had to go to. If I had to go to a certain grocery store, right? But let's just say in Christown, which is, I forgot where it's at exactly, but it's, basically a mall that we actually have here that I usually walk to, like I would film on some of my videos. The thing is that around that section, which is where the Walmart that I go to, right? I always see a lot of homeless people out there that will be sitting on the bus stops. And the funny thing is, they actually would be, how am I gonna explain this? Be Native American, because a lot of people that are of Native descent have poor incomes because of how they actually live around the Indian reservation, and they also have a huge drinking problem as well, which is horrible to see because I have encountered, or yet again, chatted with a handful of Native Americans that does have an alcohol problem and that lives below the poverty line. And it's really exciting to actually see that because this is really common around the Native Americans, which is horrible, so to speak. So basically, we're kind of like, how am I gonna explain this? I don't think I want to watch the Fox 10 News. I'm gonna trace back the channel because I want to find out about that girl's name that the police told me that got, that went missing because she ran away. Right? I just don't want to get too much trauma to actually think about that. But the thing is that we're kind of like mini LA, so to speak, because of how common it is. So that's just something that I do want to share because you will be seeing. I even have like a video that I basically put on private of a woman that I saw at a bus stop right in front of a Walmart down here from where I live, which is in 35th Avenue in Bethany. Well, it's the street like across from it, if I actually can say so for myself. And she was actually sleeping like right close to the street. Like her body is like right, like off the sidewalk. And it really worried me because she could literally get killed by these reckless drivers. Which will be going to number 4, by the way. And it is quite, a horrible thing that basically people out here where we live would get killed when constantly getting run over. And just people driving recklessly. So for the third point I want to share is poor mental health care. From my experience, we don't have good mental health care. Okay, and the reason why I share this is because I went to 2 mental hospitals myself. Not what you think. That's because, a lot of people tend to think if you go to a mental hospital, you're nuts and you're a psycho or something. It's an insult. But the thing is that I have been doxxed and cyberbullied online, and I even would share like how to explain this. Feeling depressed because I have clinical depression myself, along with PTSD. And I even have suicidal thoughts from time to time. I've been having this for years. And I remember someone would just, be quite selfish to call the police on me. And I cannot go voluntarily, which means they will have to take me mandatory. Or it's mandatory for me to actually go. And I would only be in the mental hospital for, let's just say, 7 hours to like 12 hours. And the funny thing is about these mental hospitals, they feel worse than prison. Okay, 7 hours would feel like it's 3 days. 12 hours would feel like it's a week. That's how bad it was. And one of the mental hospitals I actually have went to, it is called, actually I don't remember the name. I think it's, I don't remember exactly because I have done reviews of it, but the first one I went to was in downtown Phoenix, where I only went to for like 12 hours, give or take. And I went there around the 4th of July. Like, literally, Independence Day. This happened around 8 o'clock at night, and the police actually took me, right? And, of course, I had to be strapped down and wearing nothing but a patient gown, right? And this being powerless, not having any, like, human rights or yet freedom whatsoever, as though I'm a prisoner, right? But in a mental hospital, so to speak. And they even want to watch me being undressed when clearly I am an adult, okay, a grown adult, and I would actually have the lack of privacy. Not to mention other patients actually having other mental health issues, and us not having any hospital beds, any beds to actually sleep in if you actually want our privacy, and we'll be like in this huge facility room, right? Because this is a mental facility. It's like us though you're in a living room. That's it. We do nothing but sitting there all day. We just watch whatever the hell they will put on TV. Maybe watching a movie or so. They'll turn off. And we would never go outside and get some fresh air or do any activities. It's not healthy. And I'm just really appalled of how awful these mental hospitals are. This is why a lot of people that would do drugs or homeless, they actually have the lack of care that they need. And it bugs me because I experienced that. I guess you could say survivor, because I commit suicide when I left those mental hospitals. Not to mention, the one in downtown, they would even force me to actually take, I don't think it was Prozac, some type of antidepressant pill, which didn't help at all. When clearly I don't need to take any pills, or better yet, they want to misdiagnose me, right, without knowing more about my background, which isn't good, because I did took antidepressant pills when I was younger, when my mom and I, we actually had to see a therapist or two therapists, and they weren't that helpful. And this happened, I think, right when I started college, because my mom, she actually went with me for support, and I forgot to actually extend this because I gotta read the list though. So it's really awful. I think we were like one of the worst states for mental health care, because a lot of these mental health hospitals, at least 42 I went to, the one in downtown Phoenix and the one in Sun City, which is a community for the elderly. It's like a little neighborhood for people that are of a certain age. It's like a private yet quiet community. Yes, you can actually like visit your grandparents or anyone you know of that age, but you cannot live there because they're supposed to be for the elderly, so to speak. My mom, I need to tell her about this, because since she is a certified nurse, she used to work up there, so to speak, for many years, right? And you know, the mental hospital up there in Sun City, that's what it's called, isn't that good, so to speak. So to go, just to actually make this short, I'm actually going to go to number 4, and what does this say? That mental hospitals aren't that pretty. I even have a video to explain everything about my experience going to mental hospital as well. The 4th one, though, I want to share is reckless drivers. This is a no-brainer. So from my experience, if I have been showing my videos lately of me like going for my walks and whatnot, for the ones that have like watched my One Piece reactions, people out here do not know how to drive. This is a downside when it comes to living in Phoenix. I'm not sure how it's like in other states though, but let's just say we're probably in the top 5 for this bad drivers. You would actually have people not having their head or taillights on. I see this all the time. This is at night, by the way. I could literally get killed just because these drivers don't give a Welsh's fin to actually turn their head or taillights on, and they will hit a pedestrian. It's really common out here, because I think at least around our street, there would be like, I think in like the past year, there probably been like 3 people that actually got killed. And it's just horrifying, because this happens out here. I would even see dead animals, like dogs especially, even once in a while a cat that would get ran over. That actually happens out here. And I would actually see let's just say people that would light up candles or having flowers of their loved ones or someone that they know, especially that gotten ran over from that street. It's really dangerous to actually walk out here, depending on where you live. It's not good. And I like to just share my journey when it comes to like filming when I'm out in public, because I want to give you the depth of how it's like walking out here. It's kind of like as though if you're probably visiting India, like, or Bangladesh. Let's just say if you go to maybe Bombay or Bangalore or Dhaka, that's in Bangladesh. It's kind of like that. Like literally, I would see like videos, at least like kind of like the dark web version, right, of Reddit called "Make My Coffin." That would actually have people would get ran over and their bodies being torn up in half or whatnot while they're still breathing their last breath before they die, while they're just in like the most traumatic pain you can ever imagine, so to speak. It's kind of like that here. I even saw a man where we used to live that would actually get ran over, and I actually had to help cater him because of his trauma by using my scarf I used to have. I'm not sure what the heck happened to it, because my mom and I, we went to Paris years ago, and I love that scarf because I used to wear it all the time, and I would actually use that as a little pillow for him until the ambulance would arrive, and there would be quite a few people around us because I was trying to help him. Literally, like, this man would have died in my arms. I'm thinking, like, Deon, you actually experienced, like, almost someone dying in front of you. That's a little much. It is. Because I know it's like getting ran over. Because I got run over, not, like, literally, but let's just say I got, like, my hand scraped, right? Twice. It was by an elderly woman. Look like she was, like, in her late 60s. That was driving a blue SUV in front of her Fridays that I would go to, which is one of our grocery stores out here. I'll never forget that day. That actually has happened. And she scraped my darn hand. If she continued to like drive further, I would probably been handicapped by now. I mean, like, it was that bad. And I'm just thinking, Deon, how the heck are you surviving? I have no idea. So basically, people out here do not know how to drive whatsoever. They don't. Especially when you're a pedestrian. That's the worst. I do feel, however, safer being a pedestrian than I do as a driver. You know, it's that bad out here. It just is. And for the last point I wanted to share, heaven forbid, is the lack of schooling, or better yet, the lack of education in schools. So, I checked that, because not including DC, we're supposed to be the third worst state when it comes to education, right? Because the only two that are worse than us, which is quite a shock, is Louisiana and New Mexico. And the funny thing is, for both of those states, they have a high crime rate, depending on the city you live in. And, well, let's just say for Louisiana, the crime is just atrocious. From rumors I've heard, like in New Orleans and maybe on Baton Rouge somewhere, right? And not to mention just natural disasters because of hurricanes. New Mexico, though, is just, well, high crime rates and living below the poverty line because, believe it or not, like, I don't know how high the Navajo, or I guess you can say Navajo population is, but it is quite high, and they actually have the lack of resources for schools. So from my experience living here, it is sadly accurate. I'm surprised that I've been learning a lot of my own since I actually left high school. And the reason why I'm saying this is because the school I've went to from 2011 to 2013, yes, I'm old, by the way, it is called, named Alhambra High School. That is on 27th Avenue in Camelback. Yeah, we got weird street names. The thing is that the school is so bad that I think like a quarter of the students actually had to stay, I think behind the seminar that we actually have to hear from the principal, because we were doing so bad at our scores that we actually would have to repeat the grade, or just, well, I want to say kicked out. That's a little much, but we would have to repeat the grade because we were really behind, right? And I knew this girl that I was kind of close with named Andrea. She was really sweet because she was on JR2C. I forgot what the heck that stands for, but it's like a military election class, so to speak. She basically had to do her class online, or she had to do, I think, in summer school. I had to do summer school because I was not having great credits. And the reason why I had to say this is because a couple of the teachers, I'm not trying to be harsh though, I love them all. Well, maybe except for a couple. They did a great job teaching, so to speak. And that's why we actually had a D minus. That's not, or is it D plus? D plus. Not good. Like D plus. I mean, a C plus to be decent at least, but a D plus, that's not good at all. Like, the school was failing, right? And this is a decade ago because it wasn't that good at the time. Because a lot of the students, they would either ditch, which means they would leave the campus, right? I'm surprised they don't get caught or anything, or the police actually coming and get them, because you cannot do that. I mean, it happened all the time growing up. I would see this random students jumping over the gate, which is kind of crazy because I thought we would have surveillance cameras, but I guess we didn't behind certain parts of the campus outside when we actually had recess. And this happened probably at least like a couple times a week. And I'm just thinking, how did these students like manage to do this? And the funny thing is, I'm not trying to say this in a racist way, because this is true. Most of the students that were in the school were Hispanic. I'm thinking 80% of the students that were enrolled in El Harbor High School were Hispanic, right? And if you actually can see that, a lot of them would be, I hate using this term, illegal aliens, like, immigrants, right? Because, well, we are in Arizona and we basically share like the Mexican border, right? We're only like 2 hours away from the border, so to speak, if I actually got that right. And it's just that a lot of those students that may have poor English skills, and that probably came from Mexico, which is kind of awful. They just didn't care about their education, which I'm shocked. Especially problems, like with the drug cartels, or just other living conditions in Mexico, right? A lot of Mexicans would actually prefer to actually move up here, just to actually have a healthier and happier life, so to speak. And I guess for the students, it wasn't the case. And another thing I want to share is that we actually have, I think it's called ESL, which is English Speaking Learners. Because in my biology class, we actually had students from, I think, Nepal, even Burma, that basically didn't have great English at first. And basically the teacher, she didn't know, what to do at the time. And she also, or at least she did her best educating the students, because she was dyslexic, which means she actually has trouble reading like letters, so to speak, or words, mostly letters, I'm sure. And she would actually have an issue just to actually grade us and whatnot. I felt off of her because she was a really sweet teacher. So that's a huge problem when it comes to living here in my experience. I'm just thinking, if I ever go to, let's just say, poor educated countries like Niger, or maybe I don't think the Philippines is, well, maybe the Philippines, for example, it will not bother me one bit, because I know how it's like having to grow up in a rough neighborhood. It wasn't that bad, but it was rough enough that I've seen quite a bit. Not like killings or anything, right? Even though I saw one man that got ran over. I still remember when I tried to make a video of like a couple, boys from the school. After school was over, when I was walking home, they were fighting each other. I was filming this, and they didn't mind at all. I was shocked, really. And I'm thinking, like, why the hell did this happen, And it's just impressive how awful my state has went down. Well, it's gotten better since then. Like, it was really bad back when I was in high school. Like, the crime rate was high, and you could not be out at night. I mean, especially with the Runaways and whatnot. And well, don't just say that when you're out at night, from my experience, you would get hit by, like, random objects. From getting hit by a couple beer cans. I almost got hit by one time. Let's see. Especially with the family issues I had, just to get out of the house. I don't know why the heck I went to, like, the grocery store when it's already closed. This is probably, like, way past midnight. I got hit by an egg on my back, and I had a journalist backpack. If I didn't have that on, because it's from my nephews that they didn't mind me using, I probably would have gotten, like, severe injury, so to speak. So I love the state. It's like one of the best, or I guess you could say it's one of the best cities to live in. Even though we do have our downsides, from runaways to the lack of mental health care, and even this reckless driving. That's a huge problem here, and not to mention the education system's not that great. So this is my experience, because a lot of people keep moving here. Like, we got much better. We have. It's just that back then, it was really bad. Like, I'm sure it still is. It's just not as bad as it used to be. But I just want to just make like a little educational video here, if this actually was helpful, because for the ones that think about moving here, if you ever like have any kids, I mean, it is a really kid-friendly place. I mean, at least from my experience, it is. If you want to actually have your, child or someone in your family having a great education, this may not be the place for you. I hate saying that. I don't know. I mean, because of where I live. If you don't like people that drive recklessly, this may be a huge issue for you. Again, depending on where you live, but at least from where I live, it's not that good, especially a lot of the streets. It could be a huge problem. Along with someone that actually has a mental illness, I most likely don't recommend it. At least for the mental hospitals, because I've been to both. But one of them I went twice. They didn't treat me right. And I was appalled that they didn't show much care whatsoever. And it just wasn't good. It wasn't at all. Not to mention, one thing I want to share, though, I tried to cater a patient because she was actually having panic attacks because of another patient. And the male nurse, though, he was black, by the way, told me to get your hands off of her when I was just rubbing her back to make her feel safe. And I'm thinking, like, why won't you let me just... It was ridiculous. Even for me to actually have a mental illness, I want to be young like that. That's not appropriate. So, I just wanted to share this because I lived here all my life, and I'm proud of being born. Well, I want to say proud, because I did nothing to be born here, but I love my state. I love my flag, even the Phoenix flag. I mean, I can't imagine living like in Louisiana, heaven forbid, or even West Virginia, heaven forbid again, or Michigan, heaven forbid, or hell, even California, heaven forbid. I mean, it's crazy. Especially just throughout the Deep South, right? And hell, even New York. I mean, ugh. But other than that, I have to say that for our educational system in general and our healthcare, it's worse than just about every state. I'm shocked. So, other than that, this is my experience of being a Phoenix orbited in Arizona, and I just hope that these 5 steps were helpful. And also, I felt comfortable using a cute background of Ace from One Piece. Plus, I have a huge crush on him, by the way. Because I thought after what happened to that 15-year-old teen girl, right, that actually went away from home, would be appropriate to use. Plus, it is a desert background. Even though that's supposed to be based off the Alabasta arc. I just thought it'd be kind of cool to share that, so to speak. But yeah, it's horrible that all this stuff is common. I mean, especially for the drivers. It's horrific, but it's something that I had to put up with on a daily basis. Other than that, my name is Deon, and I love dogs, or like dogs, pun intended for that. And I guess I can see you out for the next video, at least for the One Piece reactions. But I just had to share something that's educational for once.